Bilateral and unilateral contracts. So this video is going to walk us through the differences between these two types of contracts. Okay, so when we see the word bilateral contract, one of the things that should stand out to you is the word bi at the beginning, okay? Bi. Bi means two. It's Latin for the word two. Okay, so when we have a bilateral contract, that means it is a contract negotiated by two or more parties with both parties having obligations. Okay, so there's two things to really key on here. The word two, okay, because that is the number of parties involved, or more than two, and then both parties have obligations. Okay, now let's compare that to a unilateral contract. This is a contract written by one party, okay, and that one party is responsible for saying what is going to be in the contract. Okay, they set the terms. And they're also the only party with any obligations. Okay, so when you see bi, think of bicycle, two wheels. When you see unilateral, you think of uni and a unicycle. That only has one wheel. Okay, so bilateral, there's mutual obligations, okay, and it's negotiated by two people. Unilateral, there's only one party. They're saying what the terms are going to be. There's no negotiations. And then they are also the only party with an obligation related to the contract. Okay, so a bilateral contract example we're very familiar with, okay? If you buy a house, you buy a car, literally if you buy pretty much anything, it's going to be a bilateral contract. And the reason for that is I'm going to exchange money, okay, that's my obligation, and then the person that I am buying whatever I'm buying from, they have an obligation to give me that item or to provide that service. Okay, so if we think of a house or a car, I have to pay up, okay, I have to give them the money, and then in return they have to give me the house or the car. Okay, bilateral contract, because there's two people, at least two people involved in this, and we each have an obligation to the other. Okay, unilateral contract, you have to think about it a little bit more. Okay, we have scenarios that we're familiar with, but they're not as common in our everyday lives where we have unilateral contracts. Okay, an example would be if there's a message out in the newspaper and this message is saying, you know, it's offering money for a lost pet. If you return my lost dog to me, I'll give you $200. Okay, now the person, okay, who placed that advertisement, they do have an obligation, right? They have an obligation to pay money to a person if they find their lost pet and bring it back to them. Okay, but if I'm reading my newspaper one morning, I have no obligation to go out and try to find this lost pet. Okay, therefore, that is a unilateral contract. Okay, one person is making an offer. They're deciding completely what that offer is going to be, but they are also the only ones that have any obligations related to that offer. Okay, so those are the differences between bilateral and unilateral contracts.